Hi everybody, it is me, Corrie Sommers, and today we are speaking with someone regarding fire insurance and the importance of that in Southern California. So you're going to want to stay tuned, maybe take a couple notes, and I'll be right back. Hi everybody, it is me, Corrie Sommers, your local luxury Los Angeles realtor, and today I am here with Robert Feldman from Coast to Canyon Insurance Services, and we're really going to dive into the topic that's truly affecting us right now, which is fires. We're entering into a pretty heavy fire season, and you and I were talking about the fact that that's more based on wind than necessarily the time of the year. So why don't we kind of start from there? Explain what our true fire season really is here in Southern California.
Generally, fire season starts in really about mid-October. There's a myth regarding when the fire season is. Why it's in October and it runs through really the end of November is the Santa Ana winds, or the wind patterns, as we're all seeing in the news right now. Some of the winds are just, wind is the danger, is what I would say when it comes to fire. A normal fire without wind is something that can be contained very easily. When you're having these 50 mile an hour, 40 mile an hour gusts, it can take it miles very quickly and spread out ambers. So that's the typical season of the wind, so we can kind of have it as the actual fire season. So
it's kind of, I feel like we've been having so many fires in the last 10 years, and that's not to say we haven't had fires before. In the 90s, a friend of mine lived on the hillside in Malibu that burnt down. Remember that big one in the 90s?
94.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's not like we don't have these bouts, but it seems like they're just becoming closer and closer to residential neighborhoods. I mean, last year the fire in Brentwood, now Brentwood has a fire again, and over by Mandeville Canyon, and of course Malibu. I mean, that was just the biggest one that I know of. In Malibu.
Well, I have 3 office locations. One of them is actually in Malibu. So we went through that whole issue regarding the fires. Did very well. We had policies that are set up where they have their individual fire departments that defend the homes. Very important. But you are correct. The fires are becoming more and more of a pattern. I think a lot of it, there's a lot of reasoning for it, but really where a lot of it comes into play is that we continue to build more and more into the hills. And as we continue to build more and more into the hills, you're putting more homes in harm's way where they weren't there 20 years ago. So.
Well, but to be frank, I mean, the homes in Brentwood, those are all like, in the 40s, the 50s. The homes in Malibu that burnt down, those weren't like in the last 20 years. I can see going into the hills when we're talking about the development taking place in Santa Clarita. Because there's a lot of development in Santa Clarita, Valencia, Newhall, subdivisions and all that going in, because we just don't have much land left here in Los Angeles, right? But one of the things, I really want you to dive into the topic of insurance and how you can protect yourself. But before we get into that, there was something that was said to me when I was at the nail salon about the fires, and I want to ask you about. So we've had fires, and currently the fire that we have going on right now is being referred to as the Getty Fire in Brentwood and spreading through Pacific Palisades. And they're beautiful places to live, lots of canyons, which of course is a part of what makes them, I guess, combustible, so to speak. And what was interesting was a couple weeks ago, between that last fire and this one, I was at the nail salon, and this guy was saying that, and this was before the news came out.
Of course.
Okay. So he was like, oh, it was the electrical tower. And I'm like, what? And he's like, oh, the electrical tower caused the fire. I'm like, really? But sure enough,
it was.
It was the electrical
It's
tower.
scary as it sounds, as per the news reporting.
Per the news, right. Now, so my grandfather was a firefighter.
Gotcha.
And he was based in Massachusetts, and he actually petitioned the state to get people to do service at all of the gas stations because of the reality of static electricity causing fires. And this was years ago. You go to a gas station in Massachusetts, they're self-serve and they're serve. And that was because he got that pushed through. So it kind of made me think about that. I'm like, I wonder what he would have to say. So kind of pick up from there, like what?
Obviously there's a lot of things that come into it. That's why you're starting to see the power shut-offs, because they're trying to stop these things from happening. There's not 100% out there right now as to what's causing they investigated every fire. They're looking at it. A lot of the power companies are causing the fires. A lot of the issue again comes back to is clearance and brush clearance, and tree clearance. A lot of these fires are being started just for lack of a better term of just they don't have clearance away from the power lines. There are a lot of areas after the Malibu fire, as an example. if you were to go down Canaan to PCH, they literally cut down every tree anywhere near a power line all the way through. Same thing with Las Virgenes through. They're closing these things out because they realize that this is an issue, this is a major problem. And that you cannot have trees and branches and things anywhere near. You know, the whole issue is regarding clearance. The whole issue, why we are doing pretty well. I mean, people are still losing homes. But the difference between the Malibu fire that happened, as an example, and the Porter Ranch fire and a lot of these other fires is clearance. One, two, they're able to defend them because of not having trees, not having these areas. A lot of areas are clear. It's a lot easier to defend for the fire department.
So that's actually really interesting because you see, we obviously have some electrical towers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then we've also been known in Southern California for having our utilities run underground as well.
Mm-hmm.
But especially in the hillside, you see those towers, like you see a row of them going up. It'll be a big tower, a tower, and a tower, and they're going all the way up the hill, and then the electricity is dispersing out. But it's been like that for years. So it makes me question what's going on that's different.
Lot of
is
questions.
It the demand on our electricity? Is it they're not maintaining them properly?
There's a lot of theories out there. The main thing, though, to really get in front of and have everyone really understand about is what the differences are of how to defend yourself. There are a lot of policies that are written out there in the market right now that are, let's just say, where people believe that's their only options, their only choices. An example is the California Fair Plan. That's in a lot of the fire zone areas, or a lot of areas now, there are a lot of people being pushed onto the California Fair Plan. That is a really serious problem for a lot of our friends and family and consumers that are being pushed on these plans. The reason for it is, as an example, the California Fair Plan only has 1.5 million of total coverage.
Per family?
No, per house, per structure.
Okay.
So this is a huge myth. A lot of brokers out there are selling the California Fair Plan with a wraparound, which is not going to cover a fire. It specifically excludes fire. Why this is important for everyone to know is, use the example of a 3,000 square foot house.
Okay.
A 3,000 square foot house in most areas, if you're rebuilding, are going to be roughly $300 a square foot. Some areas are less, some areas are more. So to make numbers easy, let's just say the rebuild cost for the structure alone is $1 million. And it doesn't matter if it's a fire or a kitchen fire or a wildfire. If you have a fire, the only policy you have is the California Fair Plan in the event of a claim, a fire claim. So with that said, you have $1 million gone of a $1.5 million total coverage. So now you have $500,000 left. Well, okay, typically most policies have 60% for personal property. That's $600,000. Well, okay, you're gone. You're now minus $100,000.
So you would have had to cover that $100,000 in the rebuild then?
You got it. On top of that, no additional living expenses now. Because remember, you only have that, 1.5 million. So typically a 3,000 square foot house is short anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million in coverage. So when we do reviews with clients, there are clients that we write that will take the California Fair Plan, with a wraparound, but we make sure we can give them options for others, and we really review what their options are. There are policies that are out there that are writing even in the most extreme fire zones right now. Even in the most extreme fire zones, there are policies that can be written. I have very successfully helped bring in or work with multiple carriers that we brought in so far this year. I write insurance all the way up and down the coast in all the different fire zones. And there is not really a zone that's out there or area that you cannot get a normal policy for. The best question actually is pricing. Okay. And so some of the policies that you can write if you're in an extreme are higher than what the California Fair Plan and wraparounds are. What's interesting is the California Fair Plan right now has been going through and taking very high or considerably higher price increases. So it's now that gap is closing. But with that said, if you're a smaller house, we had an example, we had a house where it was in Topanga and it was about 1,800 square feet. Well, that's an example of a house where we really reviewed with what is the California Fair Plan or wraparound? What's the coverages? What are the costs? What are the gaps? What's not covered under the California Fair Plan? Okay. And then we compared it to a policy, a traditional homeowners policy that we were able to get through. And the difference was about $3,000-4,000 a year, $3,400
The
actually.
cost to,
Go to a regular home versus the fair plan and a wraparound policy.
okay.
For the client actually saw the value in it. That company actually had its own system called Fire Break, where they come out and defend the home, so it was included.
Wow.
They also saw the fact that there's limited coverage when it comes to smoke damage under the California Fair Plan, and didn't want to take the risk of it. There's a lot of things that where we were able to crunch numbers and show clients, show an example of this client why it's important to have a regular home versus the California Fair Plan and a wraparound.
So that actually, you made me think of something. I mean, we know that smoke inhalation can kill people,
Yep.
and most people die in a home fire from
Yep.
smoke inhalation before the
Yeah,
fire
it's very
reaches
sad.
them. What kind of damage does the smoke do to the structure that could cause potential health problems? Like, it just made me think
Well,
it's
there's-
getting in the drywall,
Yeah,
right?
yep. And usually after a major fire, if you have a fire that's rolling on top of you, most of the time there are a lot of clients that they didn't have damage to their structure, for example in Malibu, but they had damage because it was really heavy in smoke, and they had restoration companies come out and clean. The problem is it's very questionable whether there's coverage under the California Fair Plan. A lot of people were left holding the bag after that last fire. Where under a traditional homeowners policy, you pay your deductible, and then it's picked up. So there's a lot of things that really need to be taken into consideration when it comes to your policy choices.
Okay, interesting.